An apple a day keeps the doctor away, but a glass of OJ keeps the adversary at bay. Here's Odd Job.
Hey, it's time for a glass of OJ. I'm Odd Job. It's been a while since you've seen from me. I've moved into a new house, and you might notice the studio looks a little different. It's a nice bigger office, and I don't know if some of the voice quality is different because I used to have some padding behind where my microphone is, so that way you wouldn't catch the echo coming back. But this is the way the new office and the new studio is going to look for now. Let me know what you think of it. Like, comment, subscribe. But hey, it's been a while, and it's also not so timely for this story that I want to cover. And I want to cover a topic of security research. As many of you probably know, and I'm going to try to talk to those who are in the know, and I'm also going to try to talk to people in this video who don't really know much about information security or IT, and just help them understand parse through some of what's really going on behind the scenes here. So just bear with me, everybody, as I kind of explain some stuff that is fairly obvious to some and not others. But basically what had happened is a couple weeks back, a journalist discovered a flaw on a website, on an education website, that presents credential information, meaning like certifications, degrees, licenses for teachers. So seemingly what you could do is you could look up a teacher, or there's maybe a directory of teachers. We don't know because the website's down now, but you could essentially select somebody and then it would display information about them. This is a very good, system to have so that you can verify that a teacher has the credentials and they're up to date and everything like that. They have their license up to date and everything. So cool. Great application. Journalist was going on there and discovered that it was giving out social security numbers, and reported that to the governor, not to the governor, but reported that to the Department of Education. Their IT department took the website down, and then the newspaper that journalist works for in Missouri went and wrote a story about this. This should have been a very good story, and this is all that should have happened, is that the headlines we should be reading today are, hey, journalists found that website was leaking social security numbers, and state website administrators, took the website down in a timely manner. Hey, this was a great response to security research. That should be the headlines. This should have been the poster child for how security research happens and how coordinated disclosure happens with government or companies, and what the proper response is. Dealing with something immediately. That should be the story. But the governor snatches defeat from the jaws of victory. Because when that story publishes, the governor then comes on and says, this journalist hacked our website and decrypted social security numbers that were protected for our teachers, the thousands of teachers that are now affected by this. And we're going to recommend criminal prosecution to the journalist, the paper, and anybody who was responsible for helping this journalist. Because this journalist also consulted a Missouri University professor who heads up the cybersecurity program there, and asked, how should I report this? What's the proper way? What is a responsible way to coordinate this disclosure with the state of Missouri? And that person's name is Sajid Khan. So, a lot of things going on in here, right? Let me break a little bit of it down. So, what actually happened? So, the researcher, but the reporter essentially browsed that application that I was saying, that it shows teachers. You can choose a teacher or put in a teacher. Somehow you search for a teacher, and it pops up information about that teacher that should be publicly available or publicly referenceable. It should be there. Okay. Decides to hit F12. That's why the title of this video is F12 a crime? Because they hit F12. And in most browsers, F12 will bring up the source code for the web page you're looking at. You can also do Control U. Right click Inspect Element will also bring up a way to look at the source code of the web page. There's other ways to do it too, but F12 is one way you can do it on most computers. So hit F12, and essentially what happens when your web browser goes out and browses a web page is it tells that server, give me the document that tells my browser how to display your website. So when you go to, I don't know, msn.com, classic, what you're doing is you're asking that website, give me the document at msn.com/, right? And there is a default web page. It's the home page. It's the default web page comes to you, and that comes in an HTML file. That is a document, and that is human readable. It's like a Word document, PDF, whatever you want to call it. It is a text. It could be considered a text-based document. And what this document does is it's written in a language. It's human readable, but it tells and instructs the browser, this is the way the page is supposed to look. You know, these words need to be bold and these size, and there should be margins on the left and the right side of the screen, and here's how certain images should be scaled, and if you hover over the image, some hover text comes over, and all of this stuff, comes in. Oh, here's where to grab this photo, here's where to grab this bit of information, here's a video over here from YouTube we're going to embed right here in this upper left corner, and it's not going to go away for 5 seconds because we're terrible people and we want you to view videos you don't want to view for advertisements. Yes, all of those things come in that HTML document. It tells the web browser what it's got to do to display the web page. Well, enough describing that. When you go to this application and you go down to the information of the teacher, he noticed there was a weird string of characters. I say weird because it's not human readable. It looks like a series of letters and numbers, uppercase, lowercase, and then there's like this equals sign at the very end. For those of us in the know, we look at that and we go, methinks that's a base 64 encoded string. But to a normal person, they may not know what that is. Well, if you go and search that or put that into some kind of decoder, it's going to say, yeah, that's base 64. And when we encode and decode things, again, for people who don't know how this is working here, it's a little different because the governor claims this was encrypted. Nay. When you encrypt something, you actually secure its confidentiality by putting math around it to change and even add into new text. And you've changed it to essentially be unreadable. And the only way to undo all that is with a key. And that can be with a certificate, or it can also be with a pre-shared key like, I don't know, ABC123, anything you wanted. So that, and you would give that to somebody, or you would have a certificate that only the person you wanted to read that would have that key and would be able to open that. Okay, that would be encryption. This was encoding. Encoding is like me saying something to you in English and you translating it to Spanish, and then someone came along and read the Spanish and then translated it back to English. It's not encryption. It's just encoding. We're just changing it. We're just changing a language, basically, is all we're doing. When you take English words or a string of 9 numbers, which is what a social security number is, and you do a base 64 encode of that, you've just basically said those in Spanish, but for computers, base 64. It's just a standard way to take any string and make it to where the computer can handle it in a standard way. So it knows it only has to deal with these, and then it can handle those numbers appropriately. That's all that means. So they didn't encrypt. It was just encoded. He goes and reverses that encoding. Again, the application, they gave them, when he said, hey, give me this teacher information, using the website as intended, that website gave them that information. It's a lot like, and this is how I want to describe it, because now this is for everybody. I want to make sure everybody understands what's going on here. This is very much like you going into the auditor's office at your local county office building and saying, I want to see information on that property, some property out there on Main Street. And they're going to give you that information. They may have to also give you information on who owns that building and how you may contact that owner, because you need to do this for title research and for maybe buying or selling the property or doing something with it. Maybe you've got a lien on it, or may need to file a lien on that house or property or office building or something. And so you need information about that. So there's publicly available information on all of us. If you own a house or if you've ever done property dealings, there's publicly available information about you there. You can get that information, but let's say for some reason the auditor also has your social security number. And when they handed a file to somebody, for some reason the social security number also prints out, or they write it down in that file and hands it off. And somebody looks at that file that they're given and goes, wait a minute, that's their social security number. Why was the auditor giving me their social security number? And goes back and hands the folder to the auditor saying, hey, thanks for the information, but you just gave me their social security number. I don't think you're supposed to be doing that, are you? The correct response from the auditor is, oh, gee, golly willikers, no, we shouldn't. Because they're in Missouri, right? Little fun. Oh, gee, golly willikers, we shouldn't have been doing that. Thank you so much for reporting this. We're going to make sure this doesn't happen, and we're going to maybe track down to see if we've done this to other people coming in and asking information about properties. We're going to make sure what's happened. You can't then come as the county commissioners and say, so-and-so stole information, stole social security numbers from the county auditor's office about private citizens. You don't get to say that because your county auditor literally did this. So the people to blame, if anything, for any of this falls with the Department of Education at the state level, saying, hey, you handed social security numbers to anyone who visited that application and looked up teachers' names or looked up teachers' credentials. You were handing out social security. So if you looked at so your browser has a cache of what websites you've gone to, so that when you go and try to browse that website again, it can go and just show you that cached page. It can just show you what's already there. So many people probably still had those social security numbers. So you're going to go after them? Are you going to then go after every person who visited that page from the time that change went active to then prosecute them for stealing? No, it's ridiculous. It's stupid, because obviously this was a flaw in the website. This wasn't the security researcher doing something nefarious. Usually in security research, you have to do something more. Usually it's you have to feed it information, or you have to say, yeah, give me the teacher's name. This is the teacher's name, but we're going to say selects SSN. Or we're going to put some database language speak in there. SQL injection is what it's called. We're going to put something in there that tells the database, that tries to trick the database into giving you more information than what you wanted, what it's designed to normally give you. That would be more of an exploitation of a vulnerability. That's getting a little more nefarious. What would normally be nefarious, where someone would want to do this and steal this information. The problem, of course, is that's not what happened. This person was using this website as intended. So we've gone all down that. So the governor finds out about this and decides to react badly. I can't imagine, or maybe I expect too much of elected officials, but I can't imagine the governor did not receive advice or information from people saying, yeah, that's not the way this happened. That's not the way that works. And you really shouldn't make a statement accusing a security researcher or a journalist of being a criminal hacker. But he did anyway. So then all the news breaks out. It's on a bunch of tech news. It then starts getting into NPR, and it gets into Ars Technica, Vox, Vice, Rolling Stones, everybody's dogpiling on this. Because then the governor doubles down and says, no, you don't understand. You don't get it. Yeah, you security experts, you don't get it. These were encrypted. No, they weren't. I understand that people don't understand the difference between encryption, hashing, and encoding, even though I just educated you a little bit about that. That wasn't encrypted. You did not protect this information. You gave it away and just said it in a different language to somebody. That's all you did. It would be like me trying to tell you something, and then to make sure you didn't understand a particular phrase, say it in Spanish. Like you shouldn't be able, oh, how dare you decode what I just stated there in Spanish? How dare you do that? That was private information. No, that's silly. Of course, this gets even more political because then, of course, this governor is going to be up for re-election. So there's a political action committee called Unite Missouri that then went and ran ads on Facebook accusing this journalist of being a criminal hacker, and then accusing Sajid Khan specifically of also being a criminal hacker and calling for their prosecution, criminal prosecution. So Sajid Khan was wanting to see which university he's actually a part of, but I think he's University of Missouri. Just a second. Yes, University of Missouri St. Louis, and the director of its Cybersecurity Institute, Shaji Khan. Been saying his name wrong this entire time. Unfortunately, I'm not going to go back through the video. I am terribly sorry. I'm going to say it correctly from now on. Shaji Khan. Shaji Khan, this entire time, then sent a letter by his attorney to Parsons' office and several state local agencies and that PAC, and basically said, you need to apologize to me. You also need to send that apology and have a press conference or a press release to all those news agencies you had a press conference with. You need to take out the political action committee. You need to take out ad space on Facebook, apologizing to all the people that you just communicated false accusations to. They made it also clear that, hey, there's actually a case to be had against the state by the teachers for you improperly handling their information and exposing their private information, their social security numbers, on your website, because that was published information. They published social security numbers on that website is what it comes down to. And so, yeah. So that's fun. So what's the glass of OJ from this? Or what's the moral of the story? The importance of security research. This was a simple matter. And this is by the way, this is a really, really, really old flaw. This is an old flaw that as a developer, you had to have purposefully done this. Maybe I don't know how someone would think this would be okay to do. Honestly, you had to have purposefully, with some reason, done this very thing. And of course, I don't know the state of their application security program or whatnot. I do know that I think I saw news that back in 2015 they had a fairly extensive audit that also found kind of similarly bad flaws in some of their applications, and that was kind of a bit of a embarrassment to them because that also got reported in the news at one point. So yeah, there's some really important work that security research does, whether you're getting paid for it or not. Every single time you see that Microsoft releases critical updates or Adobe releases new security updates, Office has new security updates, Mac has new security updates. If you go back to the release statements and release histories for those updates, you're going to see credits to organizations, people, and sometimes just anonymous notes saying, this was reported by a security researcher. Without security research, there are many, many, many high-profile vulnerabilities that would not exist, or at least that we would not know about. But bad people would. And bad people would be exploiting, and bad people would have control over systems that they shouldn't have, and that they wouldn't have had this not happen otherwise. And security researchers make sure that they get to the flaws that are on our public applications and in our software before the bad people do. So when you have a governor issue statements like this, and the state police there in Missouri, the Highway Patrol it's called, they're beginning to do their interviews with Shaji Khan and the journalist and whomever else is involved. This is a chilling effect that these types of responses have. It makes the world more dangerous and less safe. So, what should you do? You should look at creating a vulnerability disclosure program. What this does is it tells researchers, hi, we support security research. It tells security researchers this is the way in which we would like to receive security research. Whether it's an email, whether there's a form you have to fill out. And here are the things we're going to need. We need proof of concept. We need code that you use to do this. We need to know the tools you use to do this. We need to know a step-by-step on how to reproduce your results. Say hi to Zelda there for a glass of OJ. I'm not even going to edit this out. She's just going to be there. And it tells everybody this is how we should do this. But more importantly, vulnerability disclosure program, before that gets published, you need to work with your IT folks, your dev folks, to make sure they're aligned to this, because they're going to get more work from this, honestly. That they're going to be dedicated to fixing problems that come in through this. Number 3, you also need to talk with your legal team to make sure that they advise you of any liabilities this could open you up to. You need to talk to your PR folks. They may end up getting from Twitter, from Facebook, from emails. They may get stuff from people saying, hey, I found a security flaw. Who do I report this to? They need to know, hi, thank you very much. We have a vulnerability disclosure program. Please use that. Most importantly, I think executives need to be educated about this, and executives need to be on board. Executives need to understand what it means when somebody does this, and that we should be very thankful about security research. Isn't that right, Zelda? She's so cute. So that's super important. Of course, then you should also think from a program perspective, how are you going to process those reports? How are you going to vet those reports? How are you going to reproduce those results? There are organizations out there to help you, HackerOne and BugCrowd from a vulnerability disclosure program. We're not even talking about bug bounty program at this point. They actually have ways of being able to help support you on the back end for those things. They do have a service that will go and find whether someone has given you a report that's bad, or they say this is a critical finding when really it's nothing, right? Or maybe they've said it's low when really it should be critical. They'll help you vet that stuff. That's really good, especially if you have a very lean security organization and you maybe not have the dev folks on hand to be able to help parse through that. It's good to have that little extra muscle to kind of vet things for you, to tell you and advise you, yeah, you really should pay attention to this. Of course, you could go full bug bounty. You could go and say, hey, these types of vulnerabilities or issues you find are worth $10,000. By the way, because of what kind of information was involved in here and the ease at which it was to get this should literally be like $100,000 fine. Like, it should be high. It should be a very, very high finding to find a flaw like this because it's so impactful and required nothing. This was like, we exposed information and you found out about it. Thank you very much. Here's $100,000 for saving us from millions in claims that we'd have to then pay. Imagine the class action if someone did steal social security numbers from that database. Whew. Yeah. So create a vulnerable disclosure program. Make sure your executives are educated about it. And promote security research, because security research is vitally important to our industry. It's vitally important to our communities. It's vitally important to our critical infrastructure. You know, if water pumps are out there on the internet, I'm hoping somebody's looking at that and finding that stuff and telling the water company, hey, these water pumps are out there on the internet and they shouldn't be. That type of security research is so needed. So don't call security researchers criminals, and support security research. What do you think about this? You know, what do you think could have been done better by the governor? How do you think your organization would handle a similar issue if it was brought to them? And what do you think about NDAs associated? I didn't mention anything about NDAs. I'm kind of undecided about it. I can see the pluses and minuses to it. So what do you think about NDAs? Maybe that's the discussion point from this. What do you think about NDAs related to vulnerability disclosure? Somebody discloses something to you and you make them sign an NDA, especially if there's a payment involved. You give them an NDA to sign in order to get payment, that they're not going to either release information until you fixed it, or we can't have you talk about this for a year. You know, I've seen a lot of different NDAs out there. So what are your thoughts on it? Put it down in the comments. Hit me up on social media, on Twitter, Glass of OJ, with a 0, by the way. You can also catch me personally at 0DDJ0BB. Oddjob.com. A lot of places to get at me. There'll be links in the description. See ya in the next one.